Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm just ranking all the Pokemon TCG Pocket decks, and this is based on, the metagame. So, how well can the weaker decks deal with the better decks? That's something that does matter. But regardless, with that out of the way, let's just hop right in. And oh, before we hop in, I'd like to ask you to subscribe if you enjoy the content. That's a way to support me. But regardless, Pikachu EX is a very good deck. Pikachu EX was very good in the past format and is still very good. I think it's not the clear-cut number one deck like it was last format, where it was just like it was really good. But it's still very good. It hasn't really gotten too many new cards. The Dedenne is a nice upgrade, and there's some other cards. The baby Pikachu played within the Raichu build is good. I've talked it up a lot. It's not like insane, but it's a nice addition. But regardless, still a very efficient deck that can take care of the top decks. And I'll do the other decks I think that are in the highest tier as well. I don't necessarily have a plan for where I think all the decks. I have obviously an idea, but I haven't like scripted this out. But I think Mewtwo is the next best deck. Ultimately, it struggles to knock out something like Gyarados EX, which is played a lot. Looking at the metagame, Gyarados is one of the most played decks. Combining these, this is Limitless's database. This isn't actually necessarily what people are playing like on the ladder, or I don't know if it's a ladder, but just online. But certainly Gyarados is a deck. I think it's the deck I see the most right now, or at least recently, and it's pretty good, pretty common, and not great for like Mewtwo. You don't really love trying to. You just get one shot it. Previously in the last one, you could really just one shot everything except for Charizard EX, but Charizard EX is kind of hard to set up. So Mewtwo is still S tier, and it's S tier because it's got the new mythical slab item card, allowing you to look at the top card of your deck, put it into your hand if it's a psychic Pokemon, to allow you to find specifically the Curlias and Gardevoirs easier, which were the biggest flaw with the deck before. I mean, I guess if you don't find Ralts or Mewtwo, that's also a problem, which this can help you get, but you can get those with Pokeball and you can start them as well. But Mythical Slab is great for getting you set up, and then you also have the potential inclusion. A Leaf is potentially good for the deck, and then also you have potential new attackers with the Sigilyph or Mew EX, and I think it's really just up to you what you'd want to play within this deck. You can play. I like Mew EX, and I also like Sigilyph. I think they're both nice, but you can play them or not play them. It does. It's up to you. Don't think there's a clear best way to use it. And there's still like Jinx, and there's Mewtwo. There's a bunch of attackers, but regardless, the core of the deck is still very strong and got stronger objectively with Mythical Slab, just increasing your biggest issue of inconsistency. Still not at the level of Pikachu EX, because I mean, this is a stage 2 deck, but a very strong deck. If you get set up, you're very, very hard to stop. The deck that's harder to stop when set up is Gyarados EX, generally paired with a Greninja. Honestly, I feel like Greninja within the deck, it's good, but in terms of, and I said this before, comparing it to Gardevoir within Mewtwo EX, Gardevoir within Mewtwo EX is like completely necessary. Greninja within Gyarados EX is not. If you set up your Gyarados, let's say turn 3, and are attacking with it, then it doesn't really matter if you have Greninja in play or not. It's not like Greninja's the card getting you set up for the Gyarados. Yes, I suppose you'd rather be one-shotting Mewtwo. That would be noticeably better, but you should be fine. You can just try it again. Like, ultimately, Greninja adds value, but it's not as strong as Gardevoir. That's not why I have this deck ranked below. It's just a deck that Gyarados EX is really hard to set up, and Gyarados EX and Greninja together is super hard to set up with powered up Gyarados. With Gyarados EX, you really need Misties to hit. Like, one Misty heads throughout the first few turns, which you could get, but you won't always get. So you have that inconsistency there. And I say if you just get one, that's not necessarily great either. You need to draw into your Gyarados EX. If you just have your Magikarp, you literally can't do damage. And drawing in as a wall is okay. It's certainly, I mean, it's a good wall, I guess, but it's not something applying a lot of active pressure. So if your opponent's able to set up a really big threat behind it, that could be a problem. Realistically, what would that threat be that's actually a problem for Gyarados EX? I don't know, like Charizard EX could be a problem, but you do have weakness, which could help there. But ultimately, the big thing is that's really hard to set up. But Charizard EX, right? Gyarados EX is easier to set up, and it's a very strong attacker. It's not something that is as consistent, because you do need coin flips, which isn't something you need with, I mean, Pikachu EX. If you're attacking with Zapdos EX or Dedenne or Pincurchin as well, I guess, then you would need coin flip luck, but generally you don't. And same thing for Mewtwo, so that's just something I'm not a massive fan of with Gyarados. And you need a few specific coin flips to go your way. And if you do, then the game, if they go and you get lucky, you can just win very easily. However, comparing it to like Misty was primarily played with Articuno EX before Gyarados EX came out, and you had the potential to win if you got a few lucky coin flips essentially on the spot, which you don't have with Gyarados EX. You will be in a better spot with more Misty heads, but you can still have games where you can flip a bunch of heads and you can lose because say you don't have your Gyarados EX. That would be the situation if you don't have the Gyarados EX in play. But regardless, still definitely a very good deck. The fourth best deck in the game right now is Celebi EX, I'm pretty sure. And I'm going to put this in um I'm not actually sure, to be honest. I'll put it in S tier. I think Celebi EX on its own without your superior setup is decent. It's not like amazing, and people are playing it a lot with Exeggutor as well, and that's pretty strong. Definitely, you have a more stable attacker with Exeggutor EX actually being able to, deal damage and not take lots of energies, which is nice, and tank hits, which you can't really do at all with Celebi EX, and you can tank a hit from Gardevoir EX, so that's just way nicer, giving you just a way to set up and have a really solid wall with Exeggutor EX, and then maybe manually attach to Celebi EX so that if you don't hit your superior, which is hard to set up, as I said, stage 1 and stage 2, like with Gyarados EX, that's hard to do, but if you don't do it, you can still do stuff, so it's a good deck. You can do either build. I do think the Celebi EX Superior build is still a very good deck. I don't think it's like bad or anything like that. It was super overplayed when it first came out. It was like the only thing people were playing, but it's still very good. Then the next best deck is okay. I just looked at the tier list, and this is a little weird. So Arcanine EX and Charizard EX I think are the next best deck. Um, yeah, I'm not exactly sure the difference. Like I often group like Articuno and Starmie together and things like that. But regardless, I think the next best one is Fire, which I'll put these two together as I'd recommend you play them together. It does take up a lot of deck space, but it is very strong. Fire is good right now. Charizard EX is obviously the strongest Pokemon in the game when set up. There's nothing you can really do about that. So that's good. Obviously not super easy to set up. Arcanine EX is noticeably easier to set up, but obviously weaker. And you need Moltres EX. You need some amount of luck with Moltres EX as well. But Arcanine EX is a very strong Pokemon. And Charizard EX is strong. And so you just want to get these guys powered up and start swinging, doing good damage. And Arcanine EX is good against Celebi EX, which is nice. Celebi EX, as I said, was super played, like really overplayed, as is with, well, I'm pretty sure we'll see with every new set, but that's not still the case, but still, it's a good deck that can compete with anything. Yes, there are coin flips. Oh, I didn't mention the coin flips with Celebi EX, really. It's like you flip a lot, so yes, there is a variance within it, but due to the amount of coin flips you flip, you'll get like the game should even out, like more within the game, the coin flips should even out compared to Gyarados EX. So there's say like 2, 3 really important coin flips. So the EX, there's like 10, 15 important coin flips that aren't crucial. So what, 15? That's probably there could be probably like 10 or something. So Celebi EX is something that the variance should generally even out more. Yes, flipping your heads at one point in the game isn't necessarily the same as flipping your heads at another point in the game, but still, Celebi EX, I feel like the coin flips feel much more like a smoothed out curve, I guess, because there's more of them and they're not as important things. It's not like flipping a coin means that you either win or like way ahead in the game. Flipping a few heads can, but not just one, generally. And then you have the next deck up would be the water deck, I guess, is Starmie EX. Starmie EX is good. I probably won't keep going in order after this. We'll see. But Starmie EX is with like Vaporeon and like Gyarados. I don't know. Like there are different like water builds. I played Starmie EX, Gyarados EX, Vaporeon. Is this? Yeah, this is it. Something pretty close to this at least, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's insane when it sets up. You have the upside of Gyarados EX, losing out on the extra pings from Greninja or Dragon is generally not like that big of an issue, especially when you can actually attack early game with Starmie EX. So that's really good. Or even just like Staryu actually does damage. Um, I mean, yes, you had like Froakie, but you have that to make up for it in some ways. The lack of an attack on Magikarp that does damage. Not that Leap Out's bad, especially going into like Dragon, but regardless, you have really solid stuff when set up. You're kind of insane, but obviously it's hard to do to get a bunch of different stage ones in play. To get one of each, it's quite hard. And you have lots of different things you're going for, like Giovanni to help with Gyarados EX, Leaf to help with, I guess, also Gyarados EX, but in a very different manner, and maybe Vaporeon. And this list plays one Misty, which I find kind of sketchy. I believe I played two in my list, but you definitely have just different things you're trying out. You can play with Rodian. You can do different things, but ultimately you're a deck in which if you set up, you're kind of insane. If you kind of set up, you're okay. Starmie EX is very solid, and this might not be like you don't necessarily have to play it with Vaporeon. There are different builds of Starmie EX, but Starmie EX is very strong. It was, in my opinion, the number two deck in last format, like the water deck. You compare that with Articuno EX. Articuno EX, I guess, would be solo Articuno EX. I haven't really seen that at all since Mythical Island came out. I'm trying to look and see if I can find it here, which I don't see it, but I could just be missing it. I guess I can Control F. You have Articuno EX without anything. Okay, it's 109th, and it's okay. Articuno EX by itself is certainly all right, and like builds of this are still good as well. I'll put it here. It's kind of like grouped in with Starmie EX, but yeah, that's fine. And then we have. I think that Golem is good. I haven't played Golem. I really want to play this deck. I've played against it some, and it's pretty decent. Again, like walling off with Dragon. Then you have Marshadow and Hitmonlee. Honestly, Marshadow seems very strong. Not like broken strong or anything. It's very good, obviously, against Pikachu EX. This whole deck, I mean, you're fighting, which is nice. But Marshadow is very good there, and it's insane against that deck, to be honest. And it's a good card in general as well. Ultimately, I think it's decent. And the other single point deck that is a stage two deck is Scolipede. I guess Alexium, there are a few here, but Scolipede is definitely a legit deck. It's obviously it's played with Weezing, very much like the Arbok Weezing deck previously, but it's also like Muck. Scolipede combines Arbok and Muck, essentially, and it's good, but it is a stage two. But Whirlipede's also good, so you can actually chain Whirlipede into Scolipede, which is nice. Ultimately, it's a deck with consistency issues, but because you're a single point deck, if you do get knocked out early with like having to sacrifice a Pokemon, it's not the end of the world. So ultimately, Scolipede is okay. These decks are okay. The best decks are pretty clearly these four, in my opinion. Oh, Exeggutor EX, I'm going to put next to Celebi EX. Now that I think about it, I'll just like kind of group these two together. Yeah, I'll do that. So I'll say these are four decks. Like you can play Gyarados EX with different things as well. But regardless, there are four top decks. Pushing out Fire, I think, now. Fire is decent. I'm not going to say it's bad, but the top five types are Lightning, Psychic, Water, Grass, and Fire. And those are the types with EXs. I guess Fighting has EXs. Fighting is not great. Fighting, for having EXs, it's not great. That's, six types. Darkness and Metal don't. And then Colorless is weird. And Dragon is extra weird. So the types with EXs are generally the best types. The types with basic EXs, I guess, are the best types. Basic EXs are good, but they're not the reason that every single one of these decks. I mean, yeah, that's obviously not the reason Gyarados EX is good. But regardless, I think Arbok Weezing is also pretty good. I think it's pretty playable and pretty decent. I'll put it in A tier. Honestly, I feel like I'm overvaluing some of these decks. I might just have A and B kind of together. I feel like there is a gap between these decks. Actually, I'm going to move these all down to B tier. I changed my mind. Ultimately, how much does this matter? It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to put these two decks in A tier here. I feel like there's a bit of like a tier gap here, and then B tier will be pretty big. Then fighting stuff I think is decent. I don't actually know what these fighting decks are exactly because fighting's mix and matchy. I feel like, but you have Aerodactyl EX and what? There's a lot of far-fetched decks. I don't actually know what these decks are. Maybe that's what the Farfetch'd deck. I have no idea what this Farfetch'd deck is. I have not seen that before. Mew EX Farfetch'd. So this is like fighting Farfetch'd box. Um, it seems really cool. So I'll actually. I've not played this. I've like not played against this either. So I can't really comment on that deck. But fighting stuff, I think Marowak's okay. Marowak EX isn't great. Um, if the actual Primate, what's okay? Yeah, so the decks are kind of weird as well. Like this is oh, is this the new Primate? Okay, so this is the new Primate. I think the old ones they're okay. I think Primate is all right. I'll just put these in B tier. The fighting like stage one box deck seems decent. It doesn't seem amazing because there's serious inconsistencies with all the Pokemon. Aerodactyl EX has the issue of being evolving from a fossil, which is kind of bad. It's kind of good. You can do some fun fossil things, but it's hard to get into play. And then you can't start it, which is bad. And which is part of why it's hard to get into play. Marowak EX is a card that it has obviously has coin flips, and getting two heads versus two tails. Two tails is substantially worse than two heads is good. So, yeah, I guess two heads is quite good, but there are times when one head's just as good. Regardless, Marowak EX isn't graded. It's okay. Then you have Primeape. Primeape's definitely a card that is really insane when set up, but you need some kind of space to set up. I guess if your opponent doesn't really set up, you're insane and unstoppable. But obviously, if they don't set up, doesn't matter how much, like really what you're attacking with. I don't know. But yeah, fighting stuff is decent, and I think these are kind of tied to Aerodactyl EX and Marshadow and Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee is just a nice, solid, fun single point Pokemon. That's the basic. Then the Oh, Blaine's deck. I forgot this deck. Yeah, this is gonna go here. I think Blaine's is a good deck. I haven't played it too much. I played it some. I mean, I played it before. I haven't played it too much with the new Rapidash. I played it, I think, a little. I played against it a decent amount as well. It's a decent deck, but you are relying on this heads with Rapidash here. If you don't get that, that can be very sketchy. But regardless, it's definitely a pretty good deck. It's the best 1 point deck. I'll actually put it here. I don't know. You can kind of mix and match. I can even see, I mean, it's within tiers, right? So if you want to reorder within the tiers, that's the point of tiers. And yeah, that's why it's a tier list, not just a ranking. But yeah, that's where I'd put those decks. I'm trying to think if there's any more decks I'd put into B tier. I want to quickly look at statistics. I don't know how good Venusaur is. Oh, people have not been playing it. Which isn't a great sign. Venusaur like hasn't been a super impressive deck. It currently has, oh, I can combine stuff as well. Venusaur's at a 45% win rate, like combined. There's some like weird things bringing that down as well, but ultimately Venusaur, yeah, I'll put in C tier. Not too much to say about that deck. I mean, obviously it's like decent with tankiness, but it's not the most tanky and it's hard to set up. So Superior doesn't really add that much to the deck. You could play it. I know some people like to play it that way. That's two stage twos, right? That's really hard to set up, and they're two different stage twos. It's not like getting your two Greninjas in play, which is very hard to do, but it's hard to do. I think like, Lillian is kind of awkward, and nothing is also very awkward. So Venusaur EX is ultimately a good attacker when set up, like Charizard EX, but it has less upside than Charizard EX, and is also harder to set up than Charizard EX. So yeah, that's not great. Then you have, let's see. I've not played with Pidgeot. I haven't really seen Pidgeot used. I think I might have all the pieces for Pidgeot, and I just like haven't bothered to try it out because it doesn't seem very good. In terms of like its damage output, it's low. Pidgeot, as I said, I've seen some. This is, I guess, the main way Pidgeot, and you got like different things here. Again, fighting stuff. Fighting is like is a really nice type. Fighting normally in the regular TCG hits a lot of things for weakness, but in pocket right now it's lightning. I mean, you see it here. In this deck, hitting Pidgeot for weakness, you hit water stuff for weakness. I think all the water Pokemon in the game outside of Frostmoth and I don't know, that might be the only one you don't hit for weakness. There might be others. Nothing that like really sees that much play. And then you hit the birds, where you hit Zapdos EX for weakness, which is thing. I mean, you're Lightning as well, so that's a mirror match. And then you also have you get Moltres EX for weakness and Farfetch. Like there are so many good cards that you hit for weakness. So being Lightning weak, like as opposed to hitting fighting weakness isn't necessarily as good as it would be in the regular TCG, but still like theoretically it's kind of good. And obviously against like Pikachu obviously, and then you also have just a very strong attack and Hitmonlee as well. And fun synergy here with Pidgeot, and you have some cool things. Pidgeot EX isn't ultimately like a super strong attacker. It's okay. Nothing super impressive. I'll put it in C tier. I feel like the upside is ultimately just okay. You have Pokemon Flute, but that's not a real. I've never been Pokemon Flute. I'm just gonna say that. It's hard. It's situational and it's like good, I guess, when you use it, but it's within this deck, but it's not like insane. Adding 20 extra damage is nice, but it's hard to use. And then let's see, Farfetch. Like this seems interesting. Like Farfetch box, I haven't really seen it played. Ultimately, generally decks that are better get played more, and I haven't seen like this Farfetched box style deck. As I said, I didn't really know what that deck was coming in, and then just like saw some Farfetch things. I will try it out at some point. I'm really excited to do that. I haven't really done Aerodactyl EX. I want to mess around with that, but definitely I've tried out the best decks and played against the best decks, and it's not usually a good sign if I haven't played with it yet. Then Blastoise EX seems really bad. I mean, I don't think I've seen that since the new sets came out. Like, why do you ever play this over Gyarados? Like, it's just worse. Essentially, I mean, it's a stage two, and they're pretty similar outside of that, I guess. They have different damage thresholds, but it seems bad. None of these decks are like truly completely unplayable. There are worse things. There's no F tier here, and I don't think there should be. Alakazam is just such a. It's so nothing. I feel like Alakazam's are really underwhelming. Oh wow, this win rate's terrible. I just looked here. Dragon's win rate's also terrible. I don't think Dragonite's as well. I don't know. I don't know. You could play Dragonite with Druddigon now, and that's kind of cool. You can do some different things. This is a no EX tournament, so it's not great. This place is. I just looked at the list. This plays Greninja and Dragonite. That's crazy. Obviously insane if it's set up, but um, yeah, I'll put Dragonite in D tier. I want to say it's like good. Blastoise isn't even like it's not good, but like it's mostly really bad. It's completely terrible because it's completely outclassed by something else, which just is not good. And really outclassed. It's the worst water EX. I mean, Lapras EX isn't that. Lapras EX is just a no man's land because it's just directly worse. Like Blastoise EX isn't exactly directly worse than Gyarados EX. They're a little different. Lapras EX is essentially just a directly worse Articuno EX, which really sucks for it. You can even play them together if you want, just like an extra copy, which you don't want realistically, but regardless. Yeah, Water has a lot of EXs, but they're not all great. Then Alexander I'll put in D tier, I guess. I don't think it's very good. Wigglytuff has like serious potential. It's kind of annoying. It's not great, Wigglytuff isn't a super strong deck and not one that people are really playing that much. It's kind of one of those like rogue, I guess, fun stage one EXs. It's not great. I'll put in C tier though. I'll put it right here. And then you've got Machamp. I think Machamp's quite bad. I know some people think this deck's good. You got better fighting stuff. This one was higher than I was expecting, definitely, but Machamp's not a it's not a great attacker. It's a stage 2 for 3 energy, and that's really outclassed by something like Charizard. I mean, yes, it's just 4 energy, but it's outclassed by that because it's it's easier to get the energy on Charizard, the 4 on Charizard, than it is the 3 on Machamp. And the weakness doesn't really do too much, and you're not like super tanky. Yeah, I mean you have 180. It's pretty tanky, I guess. You are quite tanky, but it's not amazing. I think this deck's pretty bad. I'll put in D tier. I just don't really respect it. And the other fighting stuff's better. Like the fighting stage ones are very solid. Not amazing, but they're solid. I think Gengar EX is pretty bad too. Let's see, its win rate doesn't look very good. Just looking at here, obviously that's not everything to go by. Just within like certain sample size, but Gengar is not that good. Gengar EX, and you got the baby Gengar, and you have stuff. That's not like, a very good description because there's not much to say about it. Supporter lock isn't very good. Like supporter lock, I guess if you supporter lock them the whole game, if this ability was on a basic, it would be very good. I guess. Like, I mean, there was the Psyduck, and no one really plays the Psyduck. I think the Psyduck's underrated, I guess, but it's not that good. But oh yeah, this Farfetch'd deck's like win rate's really good, but also some of these are probably in the one prize stuff only. Not sure, but regardless, Farfetch'd does seem cool, as you said, but I just need to see a little more from it. But then Gengar, I think I'll put in D tier. It's pretty like not impressive, unfortunately. I mean, or maybe fortunately, it's kind of annoying. But if I was playing a disruptive deck, I'd play that's like not high tier. I'd play Wigglytuff or Aerodactyl, and I think they're more interesting and better. I was just saying Machamp's not that good. Gengar might be worse. I don't know. You have some more. I'll put Machamp above it. Regardless, here's my tier list. Obviously, we started with good and ended with bad. But tell me what you think down below, what your favorite deck is and what your least favorite deck is. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all the good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.